Larry Flynt, OneNationUnderSex.com on the line. That's his new book, One Nation Under Sex, with David Eisenbach. And Larry, I still remember back in the 70s when I visited you at 64 Gay Street in Columbus, Ohio. I hope you are doing well, sir.
Been a long time ago.
Yeah, it was, and back we were doing business with Leisure Time Products. In any case, in your new book, you really blow up some of the myths and stories, from Jefferson and Hemmings all the way up to modern days. Well, let me just let you riff on that a little bit.
Well, in the beginning, first of all, when I decided I was going to do this book, I knew I needed to hook up with my friend David Eisenbach of Columbia University because he's a historian. I knew nobody wanted to read a history book written by a pornography. So David was great in documenting and researching with me on the book, and we think, although some of the stuff has been in print before, most of it's been uncovered by us. And not many people are aware that after the Revolutionary War...
Well, let me, if I can just go through a couple of these things. I think I
was going to say hardly any of the people, freed their slaves, including Jefferson. And Jefferson was a parent because he was having an affair with Sally Hemings, his slave girl, and had fathered 6 children with her.
Sure, yeah, and many of them did.
But historians in the beginning never wanted to believe that this great man that authored the Declaration of Independence, would have done that.
Yeah.
But
well, I think actually he's probably the one who gets trashed for that more than anybody else. But you're right. I don't think most Americans even understand the history of slavery. But I'm looking. Your book really is kind of the history of sexuality in America, not just the history of slavery.
Well, that's true too. And the founding fathers were they were a group of scoundrels. Benjamin Franklin. In 1729, 40 years before the Revolution, he was publishing a newspaper, and that's how he became wealthy. It was a tabloid scandal sheet. He had a sex advice column in there,
which he wrote under a pseudonym.
He even wrote a thesis on the attributes of making love to older women.
Yes,
I mean Franklin was really a character, and I think it was that personality of his and seducing women that helped him to get the French engaged in the war when we so desperately.
Yeah, you point that out in your book, and it's actually a historical fact that he brought a lot of people, particularly some wealthy women in France, into the American side as we were starting the Revolutionary War, and we did that Revolutionary War with money we borrowed from France.
He also recruited a man who just happened to be gay and gave him an introduction to George Washington. He became George Washington's right-hand man. Yeah. Frederick von Steuben.
Mm-hmm.
And after the war, Washington wrote him a letter thanking him for changing the course of the war.
I'm curious, why is it that when, and you talk about both of these in your book, but for our listeners, when the Lewinsky scandal erupted, first of all, you were the guy who outed the fact that most of the Republicans who were leading the floor fight to impeach Clinton were at the same time in the back rooms stooping their secretaries or girlfriends. But the president before him, George Herbert Walker Bush, actually had a sex scandal erupt during his presidency that they very quickly covered that thing up.
Yeah, he was able to shut it down because he refused to ever talk about it. But he was his mistress was a female CIA officer, and that affair was common knowledge for people who was close to Bush at the time.
Yeah. I think a lot of Americans figure, okay, we all know JFK was rather randy. J. Edgar Hoover died in the arms of his lover. These are things that are fairly well known in American history. And I've always assumed that, probably Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon, and, well, that might be it. because I used to think George Herbert Walker Bush were the only two presidents who were sexually fidelious. What's the word? While they were president.
My publisher asked me if we could come up with somebody who was truly a moral individual, and we had three people. We had John Adams and Harry Truman and Carter, and we went with Carter because, let's face it, Truman dropped the bomb, and
not really moral.
Adams hated the British so bad that.
And Adams brought us the Alien and Sedition Acts. He threw newspaper publishers in jail.
Carter epitomized what the moral significance in a president, really was, and I think he's faithful to his wife.
Well, it's a fascinating thing. And for example, some of the many gay love affairs over history. I know we had one president who is believed to have been gay.
That was James Buchanan.
Yes,
he was elected in the 1850s, right before Lincoln. And what was so strange about that is you would think that someone that was gay would identify with oppressed people. But he was a staunch segregationist and a total pro-slavery, and he handed off that mess to Lincoln, and...
that might be kind of that same psychological pathology that J. Edgar Hoover had?
Well, it's hard to analyze Hoover, but for 50 years he spied on American politicians and celebrities, and he could ruin or...
Well, he himself was living in the closet.
In a matter of minutes, he used Walter Winchell and Drew Persons to...
Larry, we're out of time. Hang on just a second.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
Larry Flynt, I want to thank you so much for being with us. The website and the book, One Nation Under Sex, OneNationUnderSex.com. Thank you, sir. Good talking with you again.